Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? It's proclaimed the greatest radio show.
Welcome to our Steelers Colts recap. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with Jay Dash. The Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Colts 45-10 at Heinz Field last night. Pretty easy game for the Steelers. The defense, to me, was really the standout, even though the offense scored 45 points. I think the defense is really the one who actually won that game, because there was a couple times when we were actually down 10-6 at one point, and the defense helped us swing that to a 21-10 lead by halftime.
Yeah, I thought both sides were actually beast in this game. It was really the most well-rounded game the Steelers played all season. And if you remember when we were down 10-6, actually, Big Ben, Antonio Brown, and Martavis Bryant came out and just went straight down the field on them offensively. So I see both sides as having great games here. But you're right about this defense. They had, what in my mind, the best game of the season so far.
Yeah, they snapped their streak of 3 straight games, allowing 300 or more passing yards. They only allowed 186. They had consistent pressure on Hasselbeck all night. They had 5 sacks. That's the 4th time this season, giving them 35 on the year. And that's one of the nicest things I like. That and the turnovers from the defense this year is really what the difference between this year's team and last year's team.
They did have pressure on them, but the sacks really didn't come all game long. There was actually 3 sacks on the final drive of this game, 2 by Harrison, in fact. But yeah, they forced 5 punts, 3 of those being 3-and-outs. They forced 2 turnovers on downs. They had 2 picks, a fumble recovery, and more importantly to me, they only let up 10 points. And look, the only times Indianapolis scored in this game was when they started in Steelers territory. They allowed a field goal on a drive that started at the 26-yard line after the D'Angelo Williams fumble early in the game. And then they allowed a TD that started at the Steelers' 46-yard line when the Steelers really didn't get anything going. They started at the 10-yard line. They lost 7 yards and ended up punting and kept them in their own territory. So really, the only points that this defense let up this entire game, they started in Steelers territory. So you give this defense long field position, and it's hard to score against them.
They had their 4th red zone takeaway this year, too, the Jarvis Jones interception at the 1-yard line. That is huge for a defense that is usually giving up big chunks of yards. They did not. I think they held the Colts to under 100 yards rushing. I believe that's the 7th time, maybe even more for the Steelers defense this year. So when you hold the team to under 100 yards rushing and only allow them to throw for 186 yards, it's going to be really hard to beat a Steelers team who is averaging quite a bit of points now on offense. They actually scored 30 points for the 4th consecutive game.
Yeah, they're getting it going. But like we said, they didn't look that great in Seattle last week, obviously. And something this offense did in this game that they needed to do in that Seattle game was when they had that lead, they went out and started running D'Angelo Williams. D'Angelo Williams wasn't having a good game at all in the first half. He had that 21-yard run on the second drive. Well, it was the first drive of the game, actually, because Jacoby Jones fumbled the opening kickoff. And you were talking about Jarvis Jones. He came up with that big pick. That was huge. But after that 21-yard run by D'Angelo Williams, he fumbled right after that, and then he had nothing for the entire half. And then they came out in the second half when they had that lead, and they just fed the ball to D'Angelo Williams. And you see, that's what they needed to do against Seattle, and they would have won that game as well. That they did it this week, and you see it paid off.
He had 10 carries for 33 yards in the first half. He had 16 carries for 101 yards in the second half. Big difference.
Yeah. And he had 5 receptions as well, 31 yards. And on the other side of the ball, Frank Gore, you were talking about him in the Steelers defense not letting up 100-yard rushers. He looked okay early in this game, but they fell behind so early that they really had to shy away from him. But really, he stayed involved in the passing game. He actually led this team in receiving with 49 yards, and he had their only touchdown as well. One of those receptions was a 34-yard gain. But really, 13 carries, 45 yards. This defense did a great job of shutting him down, and it looks like he's starting to wear down a little bit at his old age late in the season. But, I mean, it's still a good game. Really, no one, though, had a great game for Indianapolis. The Steelers' defense, the Steelers' offense, they did everything they needed to do. Look, Hasselbeck, 16 for 26, 169 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. He got injured late in the game, obviously. they got Charlie Whitehurst now. They really need to get Hasselbeck back. I know he didn't have the greatest game, but you need Hasselbeck over Charlie Whitehurst, especially when you're already down Andrew Luck.
The best player for the Colts was Jacoby Jones last night.
Please believe, like we said, he fumbled the opening kickoff, and he fumbled again late in the game. And
before the half even, I think it was. Tomlin pulled him at halftime.
Yeah, that's what I meant, late in the half. But I'm done with this guy. I think it's time.
I'm done with him.
Your ridiculous prediction last week was make a play in the passing game. He did the total opposite. He got booted out of the game by Tomlin.
What do you think about the changes the defense made? It wasn't wholesale changes. They did let Brandon Boykin play. He had the interception on the tip pass by Gay. Basically what they did when they were in their 3-4 base, they had Gay and Blake on the outsides. But when they went to the nickel, Cockrell and Boykin came in. So Gay and Cockrell were on the outside. Boykin played the slot inside. Obviously, when Willie Gay went out, and it was Blake and Cockrell on the outside and Boykin on the inside. So you might see Boykin forced into duty next week if Gay can't play because he is in concussion protocol. Tomlin said that. It could just be something minor like Ben had, though, and he could be back. Gay hasn't, I don't think he's ever missed a game in his career, honestly.
No.
But I did like, the little bit that Boykin brought to the team. He has some sure hands. I like that they're splitting Blake and Cockrell on the outside because it's the less is more thing that we were talking about for both of those guys. The more plays on the field, the more chance you have to expose both of them. The less plays there are on the field, the better chance that they have at performing. And if those two are splitting time with Gay and Boykin kind of splitting time, not necessarily Boykin moving outside, but you know what I mean as far as outside, inside, I think that gives the it's like a D-line rotation. I mean, it's worked for a lot of teams. We don't have a stud guy. So let's keep the freshest guys out there and the most productive guys out there in the situations.
All I know is they got blown out last week at Seattle. Now, I know Boykin wasn't the difference maker here or anything, but you seen him playing. He looked good. He had that interception. That was really on Gay. That was a bigger play by Gay at that point. But he also had some passes batted down as well. So I'm going to keep playing him, but I don't really think he was the difference between last week and this week.
Turnovers were the difference.
Oh, yeah, turnovers definitely part of the difference as well. But another part of the difference to me is Ryan Shazier. I mean, you seen before he got knocked out of that Seattle game, the offense for Seattle really wasn't doing much. And I was kind of surprised to see him playing this week, actually. And we need him playing. When he plays, the defense definitely plays better.
All the people that are calling him soft, dude just played a week after getting a concussion. That's not very soft. Looks like he manned up. You want an interesting note for the defense for the week?
Go ahead.
James Harrison joins Greg Lloyd as the only Steeler player with at least 30 forced fumbles since 1987.
Nice.
Lloyd had like 36 or 33 or something like that.
He's a beast, yeah. And you know what? That forced fumble came after the 60-yard return you remember they had. What was that guy's name? Quan Bray or something, I think it was. And there was actually a 15-yard face mask on that return as well. So they started at the 27-yard line. So they put the defense in a terrible position right there. And James Harrison came up huge at the end of this game. Harrison forced a sack fumble right there, and obviously Vince Williams recovered it. And then the last drive of the game, he had 2 sacks as well. And Arthur Moats came up with one.
I love the rotation of the linebackers. We're talking about rotation of corners. I think we've gotten the most out of everybody we could. Now, Jones could have maybe made another splash play or two. I'm not saying they couldn't have played a little bit better each, but I think we've gotten the most, even including Vince Williams and Sean Spence whenever Ryan Shazier has been hurt. Both of those guys have stepped up and played well enough, at least, in Shazier's absence. These linebackers were a worry coming into the season. They had a lot of young guys in there. Moats has never started. Obviously, Dupree's never started. Jones has never been able to finish. Shazier hasn't been able to finish. Harrison's old. But I think they've all surprised us. I think they've played well. And I definitely think the D-line and the linebackers, we've been saying it all year, the D-line. Well, I think the linebackers are stepping up and taking their position as part of the reason why this defense is playing well, because they're getting pressure on the quarterback. Not every single game. They've had their times where they needed to get more. Last week against Seattle, they could have done it a little bit better. But I think they're trending in the right direction overall, that front seven. How about Cam Hayward? We were talking about it before we came on. there was like a screen pass, I think, and he actually touches Matt Hasselback at one point in the play and then runs like 35 yards downfield and makes the tackle and then has to sprint back to the line of scrimmage and then play another down and push up against the guy who's 350 pounds. This guy is a freak athlete for a D lineman. He may not be J.J. Watt, but he is a 3-4 defenses version of a J.J. Watt.
And one of the main reasons teams can't run against you with him and Tuitt.
Believe it. Solid play out of McClendon this year, too. I always hate on that guy.
I mean, really, the only people you can look at on the defense that has had down seasons are the corners.
Yeah.
And really not Willie Gay.
No, it's just been Boykin and Cockrell.
Well, not even Boykin.
Or, I'm sorry, Blake and Cockrell.
Yeah. We say it every offseason, though. We want a cornerback, but I understand where they're coming from. Cornerbacks are hit or miss so often that if you miss it with your first-round cornerback, then you're screwed. I mean, Cleveland has done it before. Cincy's done it before. So it's tough to hit on a cornerback in a draft, but they really need to go out there and find something, and maybe Boykin still is that guy.
Even the top of the second tier corners would be good for us because we don't really use our corners
Rod Woodson, man.
to feature. I mean, yeah, but Woodson was a first-round pick, correct?
Yeah.
So, we had Troy as a first-round pick, Chad Scott as a first-round pick, and Rod Woodson. I think those are the only defensive backs we've had as a first-round pick in our lifetime.
I like DJ Johnson.
Deon Figures was good. He wasn't a first-round
right.
pick, though. Dude shredded his knee. Well, what about the offense? Consistency this week. Yeah, D'Angelo fumbled once, but he did end up getting the game ball at the end of the game. I don't know if anybody's seen his interview at the end, but that was hilarious. Screams, "I got a game ball," into the freaking mic and camera and just flashes it. It was awesome.
Yeah, the offense started out, it looked ugly, obviously, like we mentioned. Jacoby Jones fumbles the opening kickoff. Jarvis Jones comes up big, but then D'Angelo Williams fumbles right after that. But really after that, I mean, the offense poured it on all game long. Now, D'Angelo Williams, like we said, he didn't get it going in the first half, but 134 yards on the day, 31 receiving. Like I said, he had a 21-yard run in the first half, and that was it. But in the second half, on the second drive, look at this. He had runs of 6, 16, 14, and 13. That's 49 yards right there. And the game was already out of reach at this time. It was 28-10 at that point. So the Steelers were on top with a comfortable lead. They really didn't use D'Angelo Williams yet in this game. And they started feeding them the ball when they have that lead. The same thing they needed to do last week at Seattle. But what I like out of the Steelers offense the most is what they did in the first half. I know they had the big plays in the second half, but you look, on the second drive of the game, Jesse James was the guy that was featured. That drive ended in a field goal. Yeah, he had 3 catches for 30 yards on that drive. In fact, that was his entire game. And then on the 5th drive in the first half, Bryant had 33 yards on 2 receptions, and Brown had 36 yards and a touchdown to make it 14-10. And then on the 6th drive, Wheaton had his game, 3 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. That was the last drive before the half. It was a 5-yard touchdown to put him up 21-10. So really, Big Ben spread the ball around like I haven't seen him do in his entire career.
It's crazy. Has Wheaton really come on? I mean, has he really maybe figured out the slot?
Well, this is what we talked about. Look, did he have a great game? I mean, he had one good drive, but that's all you need because you have Antonio Brown, right. You have Martavis Bryant, usually you have Heath Miller, usually you have Le'Veon Bell. I mean, you have D'Angelo Williams right now, who's no slouch either. But one good drive out of Wheaton, if you can feature him on one drive, that makes the defense have to
think about it.
Think about him for the rest of the game, yes. And then that leaves Bryant and Antonio Brown open more often. And look, if it's only one drive and you have 50 yards, you have 50 yards every game. You're coming up with 800 yards at the end of the season.
That's a good year.
Yeah, exactly. So I like what the entire receiving corps did here. Obviously, Brown with the 2 touchdowns and the 71-yard punt return as well. And that really made it a blowout. That made it 45-10 at that point after that 71-yard touchdown. And everybody's complaining about him grabbing the goalpost or jumping into the goalpost or whatever. And they said they never seen that before. People used to do that
Steve
all
Smith
the time.
has done it like as recently as 2 or 3 years ago when he was still with
Usually
Carolina.
they stick to it.
Yeah.
How
about the chick standing behind it, the security girl? Did you see the replays?
Yeah, they said he grabbed her hair.
He scared the crap out of her.
Yeah, he just
she
grabbed her
probably peed her
arm
pants.
But I'm not impressed. He had the flip. That was a lot better when he had the flip.
I think he just needs to tone it down a little, but I'm not going to hate.
No, what I think he needs to do next is a flip into the goalpost and stick it.
Flip onto the goalpost.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
back flip onto the goalpost and sit on it.
No, I'm just saying do what he does and just do a front flip and just grab the goalpost at the end of the flip.
See, I want him to back flip and land on the crossbar of the goalpost and just sit there with his arms crossed, all gangster. Now that would be thug life.
It would be.
Couple records for the Steelers on Sunday. The Pittsburgh Steelers have scored 30 points or more in 4 consecutive games in a single season for the first time in team history. They scored 30 points or more in 5 of 12 games this year. That is not a record, just a stat I wanted to give you. All the games where we've scored 30 points have been with Big Ben as the quarterback for at least, 95% of the game. He came out the final drive of Seattle or whatever. The Steelers netted 450 yards in 4 consecutive games, tying an NFL record, and they set a record for most 2-point conversions in a season, 7 for 10 on the year, 70%. We said before, but coming into the season, all you got to do is go 51%, and it's worth it. We talked about it last week, Dash. It did kind of cost them a little bit. They would have had a better chance to come back and win that game if they hadn't gone for it. Do you still keep going for it? I mean, it just 7 of 10. I mean, 70%.
I mean, if you're going to blow teams out, I really don't care what you do. But in tight situations, I mean, when they do it, it's always like if they kick the extra point, they'll go up 3 points. But instead, they decide to go for 2, and they usually do make it. But if you don't make it, then you're up 2 points, and it really makes no sense to me at that point. So it is scary.
They feel like they
but
can
I mean,
just
they
come
make
back
it
and
more
get it.
often than not. So I really can't argue. But it just seems like when they do it, it's odd.
And it does seem like odd times when they do it. I don't know. Big Ben loves it. And I guess Tomlin's just going to give him the liberty to... I mean, you kind of see it. He almost decides himself when he wants to do it.
But yeah, I can't ask any more out of the defense, like we were saying before, and I can't ask any more out of the offense. Big Ben had, 522 yards passing against the Colts last season?
Yep.
So he has 886 yards and 9 touchdowns over his past 2 games against the Colts.
10. He had 6 in that game.
I thought they said 5.
I looked it up earlier. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, well,
6.
maybe it's 10 then. I
Yeah.
could have sworn they said they had 5. They brought it up during the game, or that he had 5. But look, Ben, 364 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had no turnovers. D'Angelo Williams, over 100 yards. Antonio Brown, 8 catches, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Martavis Bryant had a big catch. That's what you want to see out of him. He had the 68-yard touchdown, and I want to see that week in and week out of him. And that was really the backbreaker because that was their first score out of the half. They went into the half leading 21-10, came out of the half and had the big touchdown to Bryant to make it 28-10, and that was really the backbreaker in this game. And then Wheaton, like we said, even if it's only one drive, you come up with 3 big catches, a touchdown, 50 yards, I'll take it all day long. Jesse James was even making some plays early in this game, like I said. But with Heath Miller back, it should only be better. I like when Ben spreads the ball around. It makes it easier on Brown and Bryant, in my opinion.
Does the drop late in the game in the end zone worry you about Bryant? Does it seem like it's becoming too much of a trend for him? Because if this was a close game, that would have been a real big kick in the ding-ding. But, considering you're blowing him out, I didn't want him to catch it because it would have cost me my fantasy game. But I don't know. It's a little scary.
It's
concerning for me, that's all.
He's young. This is only his second year. He missed 5 games this season. You can already see he's an elite athlete.
13 touchdowns, I think, in his first 16 games.
If he can keep his head on straight and come out next year, have no suspensions or anything, be healthy, I think he'll take it to another level. Maybe you worry about it this season a little bit because you could see he's still a little bit raw. But I think in the future, I'm not really worried about drops right now. If this guy's going to be on your team moving forward for the next 5 years or whatever, I really don't worry about it. I think he's just going to keep taking his game to the next level unless he makes a mistake again.
So what are we going to do with the kick return situation? To me, I think, and I know you probably agree with this, cut Jacoby Jones.
Yep.
Maybe promote somebody or something from your practice squad to take his roster spot, whatever. I'm not saying take his place on the field. I'm just saying take a roster spot. Put Marcus Wheaton at kick return.
Yep.
Stop messing around. He did well enough last year. He doesn't fumble. He'll get you probably around a 23-yard average to 20, maybe even more. Maybe he'll do a little better. It gives that guy a chance to be on the field. He's earned it over the last 2 weeks, the opportunity to make more plays. Maybe he gives you a big return. I don't know about punts. We've never seen him return punts. I don't think he did that last year. AB comes in and runs the punt back for a touchdown.
I felt like it was going to happen.
Ridiculous.
Just because of how terrible Jacoby looked, Antonio Brown was going to make him look even worse.
And Brown really only had to make one move. Did you notice? I mean, he kind of made the first guy miss, and then the punter, he just gave the punter like a little whoop move, and that was it. He almost just ran straight. I still don't want
Brown returning punts. I mean,
that's what I was just going to ask
you. That punt return meant nothing. It was 35-10 at that point. I'm thinking, oh my God.
The only thing it did is keep my prediction correct when I said they were going to score between 40 and 45 points. But who returns punts then? Do you bring Dre Archer back? Do you admit mistake?
Fitzgerald Toussaint.
Yeah, what about that guy? Does he return punts?
I have no clue. If
he had a nice little 7-yard run.
I bet he could return kicks, if nothing else, though. I'd rather have him than Jacoby Jones. Who knows? But what happened to Jordan Todman? I like this guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's injured and we just don't know about it. Like, not, bad injured, just banged up a little bit or something. I know this is ridiculous and it's just kind of a joke, but what if you just don't put a punt returner back there at all and try to block every punt? Seems like enough kicks were blocked yesterday that maybe we got a chance. If we can go 7 for 10 on 2 points, why can't we block 50?
It can kill you on field position, though, man.
Yeah, I know. It'd be funny, though. It would have been hilarious if he didn't bench Jacoby or he just didn't do it for one punt return. He was just like, you know what, Jones, you're so bad. We're not even going to put one out there. We're just going to try to rush him.
That's another thing I liked out of the offense in this game, though. Talking about field position real quick. Boykin did set him up with his pick at the 37-yard line of Indy. But outside of that, I mean, the Steelers put together some long drives, and really, they haven't done that this season.
Time of possession, we won again.
Yeah, I mean, they started at the 10, the 15, the 20. I mean, they were starting deep in their own end, and they were moving the ball, which is big because they really don't do that consistently, and they need to start to put this together. I know they scored over 30 points in 4 games or whatever. I don't even think they were all great games by the offense, to tell you the truth. This is really the game that I'm looking at, and I want to see more. I don't need to see 45 points. They can do this with 30 points. I mean, yeah, they put up 30 points on Seattle last week, but it looked like garbage. By the time they had 30 points in this game, everything looked great outside of... They actually had 2 turnovers after 1 drive.
Yeah.
So, after that, I mean, everything looked great. I just want to see more of that.
Earlier, you said... I don't know if we were talking on air before, you said when Ben turns the ball over, it makes it really hard for us to win, and we lose a lot of those games. And Ben didn't have a turnover in this game. The only offensive turnover was a fumble by D'Angelo, and the defense held him to 3 points after that. So that was the biggest difference. And I know when I said that was my key to victory, it's a very cliche, generic, and easy thing to say. Anybody can say, you win the turnover battle, you're going to win the football game. It's not like I came out with some genius, opportunistic idea. But it's just, to me, that's all this team really has to do. They're good enough that if they win the turnover battle, they will win the majority of their football games. Look at the Patriots game from yesterday. They got killed in the turnover battle. They got killed on special teams. The Patriots are so much better than the Eagles. We all know it. You can see it on paper, the eye test, everything. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good you are. When you give up those kinds of plays and those kinds of turnovers, you're going to lose. And that's really what cost that game in Seattle. I know we both agreed that the offense didn't look great, but it's still impressive to score 30 points on Seattle. I understand we gave the ball away. We had a million drives, and that's, all. Still, to do that was still, impressive for me. So we did have somewhat of a moral victory, even though I don't like those, in that Seattle game. Our offense showed they can put up points against a good team. They just had to cut down on the turnovers. They came into this game. The Colts are nowhere near the defense Seattle is. They cut down on the turnovers, and they dominate.
Well, I think it all ties together, too. You start running the ball. You don't keep passing the ball when you're up 15 points. Right. You know what I mean? And that's what happened. D'Angelo Williams wasn't doing anything in the first half.
And they stuck with it.
Just like he wasn't in Seattle. Yeah, they stick with it in this game, and look what he does. He breaks out in the second half, and he could have done the same thing against Seattle.
Agreed.
And it would have cut down on a couple of those interceptions as well.
Who's your player of the game? Least valuable player is Jacoby Jones.
Please believe.
Garbage.
I don't know. I like what everybody did, so I'm going to have to go with Ben. I haven't seen Ben spread the ball around like that all season, and maybe never, to tell you the truth. I never really see him spread the ball around like he did. So I'm going to have to go with Big Ben in this game.
I agree. Ben completed 24 passes for 364 yards, 4 touchdowns, had a 126.4 QB rating. In the 2 games versus the Colts, we already touched on it a little bit, 886 yards, 10 touchdowns on 64 completions. That's like a 13.8 yard average per completion. The Steelers as a team are 60-7 when Big Ben has a passer rating of 100 or more. So you could tell that he is really what drives this offense. I mean, you can say Le'Veon Bell is the greatest back in football right now, but look, the offense is still producing with
Definitely not
D'Angelo
right now.
Williams in there. So Big Ben is the key to this offense. Anybody who thinks he's a bad quarterback is just a hater or an idiot, because he's moved on from the always having to move around to make plays. In his younger days, you rarely seen him stand in the pocket long. He'd move side to side. He didn't run in front of the line of scrimmage, but he'd move around and make big plays. He's reading defenses before the snap. He's getting matchups. He's calling audibles. He's running this know-how-to offense. He's spreading the ball around, especially in this game.
He even hit Will Johnson on a 2-point conversion.
I mean, if this offense keeps playing this well, we are a scary wild card team. I would not want to play the Steelers if I'm the Bengals. I'm not guaranteeing, but I guarantee the Steelers have a chance if we have to go into our first playoff game or second playoff game against the Bengals. I would not say that that is a horrible mismatch as long as we don't turn the ball over.
I mean, we
4
talked
times.
about this last week. Yeah, I don't give the Bengals a better chance to
Number 1 seed
make
now.
it farther than the Steelers in the playoffs.
So Pittsburgh's the 7th seed now, moved up from the 8th seed. They got Kansas City and the Jets in front of them for the wild card spot. You got Cincinnati at 1, Denver at 2, New England at 3, and the Colts at 4 because they're leading their division still. So how does this shape up? The Steelers, I think they're going to still make it to the playoffs. I mean, we said before coming into this game, you said 4-1. I like more 5-0 as far as the games to win to get in. If they go 5-0, I'm pretty sure with some
4-0
tiebreakers.
now.
4-0 that they make it no matter what. I'm not absolutely positive on that. But how are they going to help shape the 1, 2, 3 spot? Because we still play Cincinnati and Denver. So we can easily
A couple of
mix
those
that
teams
up.
still play too. Is it Cincy, New England, or Cincy and Denver?
It's one of them two. I think it's Cincy in New England.
Yeah, I have no clue. But yeah, I mean, we got to go out and win most of those games. Like I said, if you lose one more, you said the Jets are the team that really we got to worry about. Let's give it to KC because they got an easy schedule. They're ahead of us. But the Jets, they're garbage. Let's face it, they almost lost to the Giants. If the Giants weren't such choke artists this season, they'd have beat them. So, I mean, the Jets are nothing great. Their defense doesn't look like what it was supposed to look like. Really, Fitzpatrick's the only thing holding them together at this point. And he falls apart at the end of seasons, too. So, I still expect him to fall apart at some point, especially in tough matchups or whatever. But I think the Steelers are fine right now, and really, they don't even have to win next week because, let's face it, they're not going to win the division, obviously. And I just don't see any team that the Steelers have as competition for the wild card winning all their games. I mean, is Oakland going to win out? I highly doubt that. Who else is there? The Texans? Are they going to win out?
The main threats are
Maybe.
Kansas City, Jets, Houston, and Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo,
Jets-
they're not going to win out.
Jets have Tennessee at home, at Dallas, New England at home, and at Buffalo. You got to think that at Dallas or at home against
Well, look,
New England.
that last game of the week, too, one of those two teams are going to lose. So there's a loss right there for
The
one.
Bills are probably going to lose too. The Bills, I mean, for them to win out, I just ugh.
That's why the Colts, I mean, even though they lost this game, they're all right.
Is Cleveland going to help us out and beat Kansas City?
No?
Johnny Manziel's probably going to be the quarterback for the rest of the year now.
Mm-hmm.
And we were discussing this a little bit yesterday before football was really even on. Mike Pettit or Johnny Manziel are going to be gone next year. And if Manziel is now the starter again, I have a feeling Mike Pettit's going to be gone.
I mean, that's what I was saying, man. They got to give Manziel more opportunities. I know he's an idiot or whatever, but you drafted this guy in the first round, and it's not. I mean, he looks better than Brady Quinn did when they drafted him. He looks
And
better
Brandon
than
Weeden.
Tim Couch. I
And
mean,
the
all these
22 other
guys
guys.
stunk, dude. At least Manziel has some talent. He just got to get his head on straight. Now, I don't think he's going to be a beast or anything, but they got to give it more,
Give 'em a shot.
give them more opportunities.
It's easier to get rid of your coach and rehire a coach than it is to drop a first-round pick that you traded up
well, it's
for.
not that hard to draft a first-round quarterback. They'll tell you that.
It's hard to get them working good or playing good, just not hard to draft them.
Defensive player of the game.
Man, can I give it to just the linebackers in general? I mean,
I'm going to give it to James Harrison.
that's
yeah.
fine. This whole defense, I mean, they really just played a great game. They didn't allow 100 yards rushing. They didn't even allow 200 yards passing. Well, maybe 200 yards passing, but I know.
Oh, yeah, just over maybe.
Yeah,
but with the sacks,
because
it might have
Whitehurst,
stayed
yeah, I
under.
know Hasselbeck didn't get to 200 yards. But it's just, they're just playing great, and the turnovers especially. I mean, what a great game by them. A great statement game to show that they can do it. Not that the Colts offense is great by any means this year, but Hasselbeck's been playing well. They've been scoring some points with him in, and the linebackers, the defense, all in general. They all played good.
Hasselbeck and Whitehurst combined for 220 yards passing,
Yeah.
but there was 34 yards in sacks, and that counts on teams passing, so they had 186 yards passing in
All
this
right.
game.
That's what I thought, but I thought maybe it was just because it was maybe just Hasselbeck's yards. How about Charlie Whitehurst's hair, dude? You know that dude's got a man bun when he doesn't have a helmet on. Freaking loser.
All I know is he stinks.
He's garbage.
So who did good on the Colts?
Jacoby Jones. I told you that earlier.
Well, I think Frank Gore had a decent game just for the fact he was over 90 yards combined. He had the 49 yards receiving, yet he had the only touchdown. But Andre Johnson, 44 yards on 2 catches. Hilton, 3 for 36. Moncrief, 1 for 33. These receivers got shut down in this game. Fleener did nothing.
You could say the front seven did okay, or at least average, because, I mean, they held the Steelers to not a lot of rushing yards in the first half. I think they just got worn out by the end of the game. They'd given up so many points. The Steelers held the ball for around 32 minutes in this game. So I think it's just that is really what caused them to start giving up the rushing yards. I think if this was a closer game, I don't know if D'Angelo ends up with 100 yards rushing. So I would say they played well. Or
like
not,
I said,
average,
at
guess.
halftime, D'Angelo was really doing nothing. I looked at Ben's stats. He was on pace for over 50 pass attempts again at halftime.
Yeah.
And I was getting a little worried. But you got to give it up to this line a little bit, too. Last week, 57 pass attempts? What was it? Is that what it was?
Something like that, yeah.
And there was 2 sacks. In this game, 39 pass attempts, no sacks.
And, we keep saying it, especially you, Dash, running the football is a big key to victory. Ben, last year, when he had his 500 yards and 6 touchdowns, he didn't throw the ball 50 times. It was only 49. Right. But you can't, when you hit 50, man, I would like to go look at stats of games where quarterbacks hit 50 or more passes and see how many they actually won. I bet you it's not more than half.
If you take out Tom Brady.
Yeah. Well, his weird spread offense caught everybody by surprise, especially Pittsburgh. Anything else?
No.
Great game
Just
by the
stop
Steelers.
fumbling the ball a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
That's
D'Angelo hasn't really had a problem with it. Jacoby, I think, is the biggest problem. He seriously has bobbled probably 80% of the balls that he touched. I mean,
I couldn't believe
garbage.
at halftime Mike Tomlin just said he's donezo.
That's it. For a coach to come out and actually make that statement, you're beat. He should have just freaking tripped him when he was running into the freaking tunnel.
Listen, Steelers fans should have never wanted this guy in the first place. I don't care if he was doing good. This guy is a longtime Raven. You should hate this guy.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It'd be like taking Tom Brady when he was washed up. No, thank you. Garbage. Fans, any questions or comments, hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube and click and subscribe. A little bit of a long segment for you, but it was a great Steeler victory. A lot of stuff to talk about. Pittsburgh, keep it going. 4-0, 3-1. Probably gets us in the playoffs.